Hi, students. I welcome you all to today's English class. In today's session, we will go to the second part of the story, Tudia. I will not be reading the lesson line by line today, like how I did in the previous class, because it's going to be more repetitive points if I do that. But I will explain the entire lesson in brief, in detail. I've also added a lot of pictures here so that it is easy for you to understand the lesson. I suggest you do a line by line reading of the lesson later on. So let's go to the lesson, the next part of the story of Surya. An unexpected situation or an event occurs in the kingdom of Monaco that a murder was committed in this toy prince domain. So, such a thing had never happened before. People of that kingdom were very peaceable. There was no theft, no robbery, no criminal records so far. This is for the first time that this entire kingdom is facing such an unexpected situation that a murder was committed. So now the jurymen, they discuss about this. The judges, the prosecutors, they argue, the barristers, they argue over it, and finally they come to a conclusion that this criminal should be punished. So now they decided to punish the criminal by cutting his head off, just the way the law directs. So far, so good. Everything was fine. The next day, they submitted the sentence to the prince. The prince read it and confirmed it by telling, if the fellow must be executed, execute him. But there was a problem to punish this criminal. The problem was they neither had the guillotine machine for cutting his head off, nor an executioner. Now, execute a person meaning to cut off a person's head. Now, you need a guillotine machine. You can see the guillotine machine here, and you need an expert. An executioner is an expert who is professional enough to cut off the head. So the entire kingdom did not have these two things. So this was the problem they faced. The ministers considered the matter and they decided to address an inquiry to the French government. So they approached the French government and they asked the French government if they could lend them a machine and an expert to cut off the criminal's head. So, in a week's time, the French government replied by telling that yes, they will be able to supply their needs of the machine and an expert, but it would cost them 16,000 francs. Now, Prince was not happy about this. The king of Monaco was not happy about this. He didn't want to spend so much of money, 16,000 francs, on a criminal. So he told his ministers to find out other source. So these ministers similarly inquired with the king of Italy. King of Italy was a brother monarch. So they thought that somehow they could get a concession. So they got a letter very promptly from the King of Italy. The Italian government wrote that they would have pleasure in supplying both the machine and an expert, and the whole cost would be 12,000 francs, including travel expenses. This was cheaper compared to the French government's quotation, but still, somewhere the prince was not happy about this. He didn't want to spend so much of money on the criminal. He thought, why spend so much of money on a worthless person? So he told his committees members, his jury, his ministers to find out another way. So finally, after the discussion, they come to a conclusion that they should approach any one of the soldiers among the 60 men in the army who could just roughly do this work, roughly cut off the head. So when they approached the soldiers were not ready to take this job. They said, we don't know how to do it. It is not a thing that we have been taught. So you need a professional person to cut off somebody's head. You roughly cannot do it. So they did not agree for it. So finally, they decided that they have to alter the sentence, alter the judgment. So the committees, commissioners, the subcommittees, they all decided to alter the death sentence to one of life imprisonment. So they wanted to put this criminal into life imprisonment, meaning as long as he is alive, he will be in the prison. Now, by doing this, they also thought that they can show that Prince is very merciful towards this criminal. Prince also agreed to this, and he told, okay, fine, let him be put to life imprisonment. But again, there was a problem. The problem was they did not have a suitable prison for this man sentenced for death. So they did not have uh, any prison where this man could permanently be inside. So finally, they made all the arrangements they could, and they put him into a small prison, and they kept a guard to watch over this criminal. So the job of this guard was to fetch food from the palace kitchen to this criminal. So the prisoner, he remained there month after month, till a year had passed. He was happily there in the prison. The guard used to come and give him food at the required time. He used to eat his food and stay there. So once, when the kinglet was looking over his accounts of income and expenditure, he noticed a very new item in his expenditure. This was for the keep of the criminal, nor was it a small item either. There was a very special guard, and there was also the man's food, and it came up to 600 francs a year. So the special expenditure which the king noticed was for paying for the guard to take care of the criminal, to look after, to watch over him, and also the food expenses which this criminal used to eat every day. So that came up to more than 600 francs a year. So now, somewhere the king felt that it is not worth me spending 600 francs, more than 600 francs a year for this criminal. And this criminal looks very young. He's still healthy and young, and he might be alive for 50 years. So the king is thinking, if he's going to be alive for the next 50 years, and if I have to spend more than 600 francs every year over this criminal, it's going to be too expensive for me. So again, he called all his ministers and said to them that you must find some cheap way of dealing with uh, this criminal. So he also addresses this criminal as rascal here. The present plan is too expensive. So the ministers again considered, they reconsidered, and finally they came up with a plan. So this time they planned that they will let the criminal run away by taking away the guard. So they told, let's dismiss the guard and let's wait. I'm sure once the criminal realizes that the guard is not there, he will run away. So the king also thought that this plan will work, and he agreed to this plan. But for their surprise, the next day, the criminal comes out at dinner time, not finding the guard. He volunteers himself and goes to the prince's kitchen to fetch his own dinner. He took whatever was given, returned into the prison, and he shut the door of the prison, and he stayed inside. The next day also he did the same thing. This went on for some time. Now, instead of running away, he was enjoying his stay inside the prison by going to the king's kitchen and fetching his food, coming, eating, and closing himself inside the prison. Now, all the ministers were very perplexed, they were confused, they didn't know what to do. So, the ministers of justice brought this criminal, and then they questioned him. They asked him, why do you not run away? No, there is no guard to keep you. You can go wherever you like. The prince will not mind. Now, at this point, this criminal, this person gets really angry. The criminal says, I You dare say that the prince would not mind. So this man is very angry now. He is telling that he has no place to go now. What can I do? He doesn't want to leave the cell. He says, let not the prince say that I have to leave because I have no place to go. I really don't know what to do. You have ruined my character by first telling me that you will sentence me to death. You should have killed me at that time, but you didn't kill me. You treated me very badly. You imprisoned me. First, you at least kept a guard for me to bring food, but later, in some time, after a year, I myself have had to go to the king's palace kitchen to fetch my food. Even at that time, I didn't say anything. But now, if you're asking me to run away, I have no place to go. So he says that you have been changing your sentences, your uh, judgments, your punishments too many times, and you have ruined up my life. So now I have no place to go. So now the councils and all the ministers, they just wanted to get rid of him. The prince says, let me just get rid of him. When they report this, they say that somehow, just try to get rid of this person. So prince announces that a sum of 600 francs would be given to this prisoner as a pension. So the prisoner gets 600 francs as his pension. He takes the 600 francs and he is free to go. Well, he said, I don't mind as long as you pay me regularly. So now the matter was settled. He received one third of his annuity already in advance and he left the king's domain. He left the king's uh, palace. It was only a quarter of an hour by rail. He went a little ahead and bought a piece of land. He started marketing, gardening, and he led a very comfortable life. And he always goes at a proper time to draw his pension. Having received it, he goes to the gaming table. He takes two or three Francis, sometimes wins, sometimes he loses, and then returns home. He lives peaceably and well. Now, this criminal could put up his price to this prince or this king of Monaco, and in the end, he tries to get a comfortable peaceable life. But thank God that he did not commit this kind of a crime, a very big crime as a murder, in any other country where they wouldn't even spare, even at the cost of spending a lot of money, they would have cut this man's head